Good evening. This is the meeting of the Carver Redevelopment Authority of November 10, 2020. I'm the chairman, Sharon Clark, and to my left is Savory Moore, and to my right is Joanne Layton. And tonight we have the representative from the Urban Renewal Project who's going to give us an update for the North Carver URP, and that's Mr. Robert Dello.
Correct, yeah.
Floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm going to go without glasses here, so I apologize for squinting or hopefully I don't stumble. So it's good evening, and it's really nice to be able to be here and provide an update to the board, so thank you very much. I am Bob Delholm, and I'm one of the principals of Route 44 Development LLC, the designated developer in accordance with the Urban Renewal Plan for the North Carver Urban Renewal Program. And so I thought I would do just sort of a very kind of loose update to allow for questions, but I'll cover as many topics as you'd like. We've been, as the owner and the redeveloper, we've really been working incredibly hard with a large team of engineers to really address and try to identify paths forward to resolve sort of the constraints and the challenges with redeveloping the site. An area of a community doesn't remain undeveloped or perhaps in a use that isn't really at its full potential if it isn't for certain constraints. And in this case, the constraints for this footprint in the area of North Carver are challenging access, which we now know is being addressed through a Mass Works grant that we were fortunate to apply for and to be the beneficiaries of a roughly $3.7 million funding. And that was really sort of remarkable and a testament to the town and the support from the state. This year, the process for the Mass Works grants were incredibly competitive and very much oriented towards transit-oriented development in many instances. So we were really fortunate to receive that funding. In addition to the constraint of access, there's underlying environmental issues that have been long associated with the site. Some of them had been previously identified, and others have been identified through the process of the engineering and due diligence that we've been undertaking over these last 5 years. In addition to each of those, the other two constraints are the challenges with adequate water supply, and then how to deal with wastewater for future development. And then the final component is ensuring that adequate power can be delivered to the site. And so that's what we as the owners have been working with our engineering team to really either put those solutions in place or to identify a roadmap and a path forward to address those issues as the project continues. And you know, we've been really, I've got to say that the engineering team is really made up of the best, and we have VHB has been very much our site planner and kind of overall engineering advisor. In addition, we've had a firm, Sanborn Head, supporting us on geotechnical. Jim Bagley has been a licensed site professional to help us address underlying environmental issues, and VHB providing traffic as well. So that's really kind of rounds out the team. And I thought I would start, and please ask questions along the way or ask me to slow down or pause, but I thought I would provide an update initially on the status of parcel ownership and what Route 44 Development currently owns or is in the process of acquiring. So I'm happy to report that we own all the parcels required to implement the program underneath the urban renewal plan. And if we don't own them, there's currently agreements in place for the acquisition of the parcels by the end of this year. So what you see in green is the parcels within the urban renewal plan boundaries that are currently have been acquired by Route 44 development. And then in yellow are the parcels that we have agreements in place and expect acquisition to close this calendar year or early in first quarter of '21, depending on the transactional flow. But there are agreements in place. This parcel here, which is really sort of uniquely configured, is off of Montello, and that is the what we refer to as the Borofsky parcel. This parcel here is the Kuhn parcel, and again, just to refresh, that's the Plimpton town line there, Middleborough town line, and then as we know, Route 44 and Route 58. So that's the status of parcel ownership and scheduled acquisitions, and we do not anticipate having to acquire any further yes, Joanna.
I listed, my questions was Borofsky, which you mentioned, and the Middleborough way at the corner, and Melville Bogs, which are kind of like in the front.
Is that,
Yeah, those, I guess?
Yeah.
Are those the bogs?
well,
There was initial interest, I don't know. That's why.
yeah, so what we've been able to lay out is that, and I'll share that, the original building plan that was approved as part of the EIR process that followed the urban renewal plan, identified, and there was multiple ways, I'll share this with you. What was approved through the urban renewal plan and then subsequently through the MIPA EIR process, in which we received the final certificate on, was up to 1.77 million square feet of approved uses, such as a distribution center. And so, and it's not a great way to lay it out, Joanna, so I do apologize, but hopefully it provides enough. So essentially what we've done is the parcels that we've acquired will support that approved building footprint. And that could be potentially in 3-building configuration. It could be in a 2-building configuration. It could be, in a single building configuration to full build, or to, a smaller build with the future potential for additions.
Okay.
And so, ultimately, those are the parcels that are really required to support that building
So the
program.
Melville parcels that you're not interested, I can see the water, I think that's water. The parcels were to the lower right-hand corner.
Yes, what that blue is actually, what
Not that high,
that is.
not that high up, on the bottom there, 58. The lower right-hand corner, come right there.
Yeah,
Okay, and,
yes, so
that-
so
that-
these bogs are currently owned,
okay.
and these, get my,
So did you purchase those bogs?
we did, yes.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I think the other bogs are here, very, very light. It's difficult to see in the
Right,
background.
right,
And I'm happy
yeah.
to, if you like these left behind. So, that's the status of parcel ownership and scheduled acquisitions. And then, these are just a refresher on what had been approved as part of the urban renewal plan process and through the EIR, the MIPA process as well. So in addition to working with the engineering team to identify potential solutions around water and wastewater and power and the access. We've really been focusing more recently on identifying options to ensure adequate potable water supply, as well as for fire suppression. And so through that process, there have been conversations, really more information gathering, because there's statutes that sort of mandate what gets built or what the standards are. The local community has a lot of say also in terms of life safety requirements, and so we have had some early discussions, just information gathering more recently with the fire department, and would expect those to continue. In addition, I did not mention, we have Wright Pierce is the engineering firm working with us on water and wastewater, and then Colby Fire Protection as a sub-consultant for life safety systems specifically.
Okay, that interacts. When I had visited the site, not you, I think it was George, they were talking about a tower, a water tower. Is that, and he pointed out where it would be in that back part of the property.
Yeah, I think, I'll maybe answer that in two steps. Based off of the available supply of water and the rate at which that water is supplied, it is expected that we will have to have water storage on the site.
Okay.
And that's expected for both potable water as well as water for fire suppression as well.
Okay.
And those are typically two different tanks. It's likely that the tank for potable water will have to be an elevated tank. And there's, and the potential for the water storage for fire suppression purposes is that could be a ground level tank. And again, we're right now we're sort of right in the middle of identifying the best available options, and part of that is there'll have to be some follow-on re-engagement with the North Carver Water District to really just get a sense of where the water supply is and the capacity and the status of how the wells are performing, and that'll be a lot of communication around that. But as you may know, the hydrants in that footprint and what is available for water is somewhat limited, and so the water tanks that would really be supporting the development, quite frankly, in many ways are also supporting the requirements within the footprint as well. And so it's looking to sort of solve sort of two issues. And so there's a potential that in working with the engineers and depending on what the best engineered solution may be, that we may have to look at some future Mass Works grant application, because there is the potential that the water tank that may be required would also be needed in order to support other activities in that footprint. And then if that were the case, we'd want to see if it would be a good candidate project for funding via the Mass Works program. I'll pause there and let you process that, and if there's any other questions. I apologize for having my back to you.
How long would it be? I guess, I know this, when did this start? Jim?
5 years ago.
5 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what is the overall time frame? And when you talk about perhaps needing additional grant funds, where do you put that on a timeline?
It could be that the actual opportunity to identify an end user for this could happen faster than the Mass Works grant process would allow, and so that's going to have to be sort of as that gets identified, we'll have to share that and put it on the table. but where we're currently at is we believe that we're going to be able to identify really suitable solutions for water, wastewater. Wastewater is a simpler solution in that it's effectively an on-site treatment plant with an on-site discharge field. So, it's very traditional engineering and programming and design. So we expect that we're going to have engineering roadmaps in terms of what the solution will be for water, wastewater, the roads already being addressed, as well as power here in the next 3 to 4 months. And there's literally, work being done on a daily basis towards that end. In addition to working with the engineering team, we've been working with the commercial real estate brokerage firm that we identified, which is a firm, Newmark Knight. Newmark Knight has been in the marketplace looking to identify candidate firms that would ultimately be the end user, the tenant, and or the owner in terms of who would be occupying the building program that they would select. And so that process is yielding interest, and it's yielding a fair amount of interest, and it's all sort of best in class firms. It's companies that are Fortune 500, if not Fortune 100, and those are, as you would imagine, there's a lot of strict confidentiality around who those potential interested parties are, and there is binding confidentiality agreements that are in place relative to who those potential end users are. But that process is underway. It is yielding interest because it's such a large site, and the challenges in dealing with such a large site, they're not really binary. It's not A or B or black and white. There's a lot of sort of complicated elements around this, and so those firms have engaged their own engineers to also do early due diligence, and that's underway now. A handful of firms are doing sort of the file review and looking at things like environmental for the site, geotechnical for the site, road access, and just familiarizing themselves with the opportunity that exists here.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, you mentioned the Mass Grant Works, 3.7 million, actually is probably the largest Massachusetts ever gave one town.
Yeah, it was
huge.
It was huge.
And I know you got it almost a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to claim parts of it, you need to spend money, obviously. Where has this all 3.7 going or has gone?
Sure. So the initial, what happens is that funding gets allocated by the state, and then disbursements get made as work is undertaken and progress is made. And there's also a requirement that we, as the redeveloper, also provide our component of the funding. And in this case, it could be, and I apologize, could be that the funding may have been 3.2 million, and then we're providing 700,000 in funding. And so where that's at currently is VHB, who, as I mentioned, is our overall site planner and engineering advisor, is also the traffic engineer designing the new roadway access. And so VHB subsequently entered into a contract with the town, and they've been undergoing their design and engineering process. And then the expectation is that probably sometime in the spring, VHB, working with the town, will go through a procurement process to get a roadway builder and contractor on board to execute that plan. And I'll just sort of pull up a refresher on what the general plan is that had been contemplated. There's some, as this was a, a higher level sort of overview of the work that's contemplated, and then, excuse me, as they get sort of deeper in the design and engineering process, like the specifics get the specific details that to most of us would be imperceptible, but they get embedded in the design. But at the high, sort of at the highest level, what is contemplated is that the new Montello will be further north from where it is currently located, and rather than being sort of at the odd shape that it's at, that's created a lot of traffic issues or challenges, it's a much more uniform and traditional turning radius. And so the new Montello will be built on land that we had
Excuse me,
previously.
is that Park Ave?
This is, here we have Route 44,
Yeah.
Route 58, this is Montello, and here is the sort of the current Park Ave driveway here.
Okay, just opposite of where, because if I went into Aubuchon's currently, I would be hitting the Cole property quickly. And then,
That's right.
And then on the roadway that the houses were on to Park Ave.
That's right.
And I'm kind of confused. It looks like it's backwards? Is that backwards?
No, I mean, if you'd like me to orient it differently, I'd be happy to. So this is Route 44 here. This is the westbound off-ramp. This is the New England Market.
Yeah,
This is the Dunkin' Donuts. This is the Aubuchon.
I think
okay.
maybe if you turn it 90 degrees
Yeah,
clockwise.
it's
Yeah.
oriented
Make more
to
north.
the same,
This way?
Other way.
Other way?
44 on the bottom.
Yeah,
Okay, there we go.
so now it matches the one next to it.
Okay. Put this here. Thank you for that. Yeah, so here we go, 44 here, and then the left that goes into the Aubuchon and the Dunkin' Donuts. Hopefully what will happen once this is built and constructed, sort of what's being referred to as the old Montello will cease just beyond the retail plaza where Aubuchon is located. And so that will end there, and the new Montello will pick up further north of where it's currently
Okay,
located.
so I just have a question. People from Plimpton, go right through that property all the time. What are they gonna be doing now?
And when you say go through the property, which property is that?
Well, they're coming from Plimpton,
Okay,
and they go right past Park Ave. That's why I mentioned Park Ave.
okay, here's Park Ave here,
Yeah,
okay.
and they would come,
They would,
yeah,
yeah, and if you recall, Joanne, this is one of the areas that the traffic engineers are working on. Originally, there had been some requests made by actually the town of Plimpton, and I think we have to explore
Yeah.
this and revisit this because time has passed
right.
and things have changed. One of the original requests was that that there might be some sort of almost a fire gate installed.
Oh, yeah.
And there have been some requests for that. So that's one area that's gonna have to be sort of fully vetted. Although this illustration here shows blacktop going, from here and up into Plimpton.
Yeah, it does.
The current programming that's underway for this MassWorks grant is likely to only bring pavement to, about this location as I understand it. And that is, that's driven by the engineer's estimate of like maximizing the funding and not exceeding it. And so their current thinking is that the limit of the new pavement, and this is sort of happening real time as well.
Okay.
And they keep us, Although VHB is under contract to the town of Carver, they do keep us updated and appraised of the current status. And that was the most recent update that they had
So
shared with
that
us.
leads me to ask you the other question. Currently, and I think it's still going on, you use Park Ave to bring in all the fill.
Correct.
Now, if you have tenant, and you got a long way to go
Yeah.
before all the fill is in, obviously. Will that continue with tenants or be discontinued?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good question. We've actually hit a pause on importing any further fill material, I think in July roughly.
Okay.
It may have been August, but I want to say it was July. And the current intent is to likely not restart that unless a potential end user requests. Based off of the additional engineering that's been done, we think that there's a potential, depending on the end user, and it's really driven by the end user,
Yeah,
that based off of feedback we've gotten from the end users at this time, what they're saying is, based off of how they would see the site being built out, that they think that there's been adequate material imported and that there's adequate material already existing on the site,
okay.
so that it's a balanced site. And so rather than continuing to import material, we thought that it made better sense to hit pause. Again, I think everyone's seen sort of the way that we manage the site and the work with all the proper engineering controls in place until we get feedback from an end user. But the intent right now is a hard pause on importing material.
Okay.
And I
How
think that
much,
stopped roughly in July.
How much of your expected, at the beginning of your plan, you expected to have a certain amount of fill brought
Yes.
in? What percentage of that has already been delivered?
Say maybe, and I apologize, that's a good question. That's a data point I don't have top of mind, but I'd at least like to rough it out for you. And I'd say roughly 20 to 25%.
Okay. And the potential end users are saying that that is adequate with the addition of materials that are already on site that they think they can move in?
They believe so, yes. And so rather than, the intent here was to bring in enough fill materials to support future redevelopment. And we don't need to bring in more than what we're getting feedback from. If we ended up with an end user that says, geez, we don't need sort of that full volume, but we do need some additional volume, then we would evaluate the option as to whether it would restart. But candidly, I'm not sure that that would make sense just from a timing standpoint. So that's sort of where it's at, today.
Okay, putting on one of my other hats for
Sure.
a second,
Mhm.
which is the conservation hat.
Okay.
I believe that when we were out there and talking about this, that the fill that you were putting in was going to reach a certain plateau to protect the wetlands around that.
Yes.
And is the potential to lower that height now for the potential new builders, or is it
No,
just relocating?
It would really kind of depend on what their foundation requirements are going to look like and what their site civil and geotechnical requirements would look like to support their building program. So right now, the site has been, or the materials that have been compacted and placed have erosion controls and they've been seeded and they're functioning really well. I would have a tough time sort of being able to speak to what a future building requirement might be. And so what we wanted to make sure that we didn't do is we didn't want to add an additional constraint to the site without having really positive feedback from potential end users. And that was the reason behind the pause.
Okay.
I hope that answered your question.
It does.
Okay.
So I now have three, actually, those images that we're looking at are potential warehouses.
Correct, or distribution centers, or you know, I mean, they could be, I mean, these are really just boxing out potential building configurations based off of the site limitations and,
Okay.
Yeah, you had another
setbacks.
one with just one on it, and you had another figure, didn't you have one there with just
yes,
one?
yes, so this shows, you know, sort
So
of.
there's just possibilities for the
That's,
site.
they're just possible, yeah, this is just, all it is, it's just that,
Yeah.
it identifies what could be. But it, you know, what we did do is, we wanted to sort of respect the site conditions as we know them to be as it relates to, let's say, wetlands, stormwater retention, setback requirements, but these really are just illustrations, right? And they are engineered illustrations in terms of like where they're positioned, but they're not actual end user concepts.
So my question now, based on what Savory was saying, and I have been on that site also, that you feel that this 25% that you filled and leveled, whatever, can take on any one of the sizes that are potential, or
We think so.
with the
yes.
end user who comes in has to be, would they have to provide the monetary values for leveling off or whatever you need to do with the fill?
Yeah, so I think anyone looking at, you know, at a site like this for a future development is gonna have to sort of look at, you know, the first thing that they would do is they would come in and do a pretty, based off of their specific building requirements,
Okay.
parking, building size, building location, they would come in and do a targeted geotechnical program, just to understand what the underlying geotechnical conditions are of the site. And then based off of that, they would then design their structural foundations and slabs.
Okay.
And so based off of that, that would tell them whether they thought they had adequate soils or not. And again, because we're working with a team of engineers advising us, the general feeling is that we may have reached a point where there may not be value based off of some of these concepts to continue to import material, that the site could be balanced as is. As we move further through the process and we get feedback from the likely end user, and if they have a different building program, then we may have to adjust that thinking.
Is that
depending on
who's gonna bear that cost, you or the end user?
Typically, it will be the end user will be responsible for the costs associated with constructing their building.
And I'm gonna switch gears now. Is
Sure.
the end user gonna be responsible for that, the way the highway's gonna come in, that plan over there?
No, that's already underway, and we're responsible for delivering the new front door to the site.
Okay.
Absent this new front door to the site, that's one of the reasons why it's been difficult over, you know, the period of many years, if not decades, to really get, you know, a development to take place there. And so this is something that has to be addressed by us in conjunction with the
Okay.
town, and that's underway now.
And the last thing is,
Yep.
when we were on the site, we talked about power, huge generators or whatever you need to do. Now, you said that you're hoping in 3 to 4 months, you're gonna get all this resolved. Well, that has to work with the power company,
Correct.
and there's a lot of money involved in that. Now, who's gonna pay for that, the end user?
Well, no, that's a good, so I'll break it up, and I'm glad that we're talking about that. So, just to kind of be clear and to set expectations, what we expect to have in 3 or 4 months is essentially the playbook, if you will.
Okay.
That, okay, here's the, you know, for a range of buildings that could be up to this, here are the potential options to ensure that there's adequate water, wastewater, and fire suppression. Depending on the end user, here's the again, the playbook in terms of what will be needed from Eversource to get adequate power to the site. So those infrastructure solutions won't actually be built and delivered to the site in 3 to 4 months. Sort of the engineering plans or a roadmap will be laid out and better defined over the course of the next 3 to 4
So-
months.
The cost of that Again, another Mass Works grant?
No, I don't, there's a strong likelihood that, absent sort of that, the water supply discussion, I wouldn't expect that there be other candidate investments for a Mass Works grant.
Okay.
And so ultimately, what you're asking is really kind of getting to the heart of the matter, and that's who is going to bear the investment to get adequate infrastructure to the site. Will it be the end user? Will it be Route 44 Development LLC, or will it be some combination? Oftentimes, like at least with, let's say, with Eversource, as Eversource is the electric and gas utility for the footprint, the expectation there is Eversource is going to want a new customer in the marketplace, and so the likelihood is that that the utility would bear sort of the initial investment and then recover, that investment through the rate, through the ratepayer of the end user.
Oh, okay.
But maybe following that theme a little bit further, because it's actually while the lack of infrastructure is a constraint, the greater constraint is trying to figure out how to fund that and source it and who's going to own that. And
Right.
so, any end user is going to expect that there's going to be certainty of power getting to the perimeter of the site, and they're also going to expect that there's going to be an adequate water supply as well. And so, that's what we're really working to resolve in terms of that playbook over the next 3 or 4 months. Not only what does the solution look like, but what is the schedule around it, what are the permit requirements, and what's the expected investment to be made?
So given all of what you've told us about all this, is your company going to physically sell the warehouse or whatever, and after that, they're paying all of their own bills and so forth and so on?
I mean, this could go forward in any number of ways. There could be an outright sale to an end user who has a designated developer for executing the building construction program. That's one potential outcome. Another outcome is that an end user designates or engages a developer for a fee to then work with us to lay out sort of the building program. Another option is that the end user designates us as the developer, and then we undertake the construction program here and then have a long-term lease. So those are kind of the, I'll say sort of the 3 likely ways that this project would move forward.
Okay, so here's my question. So the end of that, what you just explained, who's going to will they end up owning the warehouse or warehouses entirely? And here's my last question.
Sure.
Because of COVID and everything and the shutdown of business and so forth and people walking away, I don't want to see the town have a company walk away and close their business.
Sure.
And we have this huge, big warehouse just sitting there. So what's our protection for the town?
Yeah, that's a great, I think it'll be vetting the potential end users. And I think one of the fortunate things is because of a project like this, again, this is companies that are, if not Fortune 500, Fortune 100, perhaps even Fortune 50. And so their commitment when they look at a site like this and a building program like this is a very long view. And the one thing that I am comfortable saying is that the parties that have indicated interest to date are parties that, quite frankly, COVID hasn't impacted them. And if anything, COVID may have actually driven growth in their business. And but it's a good question, and I think that as, at some point, an interested end user is going to have to come in front of this board and talk about what they envision and how they see it. And I think there'll be a good opportunity there for that, that potential end user to sort of
So,
address their
do you
long-term
recommend
plans.
us within the town and the town administrator to, when that happens, we need to have some prior legal advice to make sure we're protected?
Yeah, I don't, that's probably would be sort of outside of kind of my, sort of my, I don't want to be in the business of advising.
No, I know, but.
But, again, I think that any end user that has a serious interest here, it's going to be a long-term interest. And quite frankly, they're going to really want to be a partner with the town. They're going to come here and really want to be here because this is going to be such a strategic location for them, that they're going to want to be a good neighbor and a long-term partner to the community. One of the things that was sort of interesting early on is we sort of thought that the many site constraints here would be the biggest sort of challenge in terms of the infrastructure. And these end users are very sophisticated. They have really experienced engineering teams advising them. So one of the early things that they always check for is the availability of adequate potential employees. And some of the feedback we've gotten early on has been that they do feel that there's within an appropriate radius to this actual location, that they do believe that they're satisfied that there is adequate employee base to support their interest in continued exploration in the site.
And then, because in the south side of town, down there, they're bringing in marijuana dispensary, or whatever
Okay.
you wanna call that. It would behoove somebody to come in and start growing marijuana, and it would be a short delivery, if you will,
Yeah.
to do that. But I have to ask you another
Yeah,
question.
sure.
And I don't know if you've done any investigation on this, but that's a realistic thing, and I wouldn't want to be opposed to it. I hope you aren't. I mean, you really can't be constraining the individual and saying, I'm sorry, no.
Yeah,
They're gonna buy it, so it's their obligation, not yours. And I guess the last thing is, one of the
That would be
Carverites,
a really big growing operation.
well, yeah, but one of the Carverites asked me, has there been any taste for hemp? Which is another product, but hemp today, Bill's, it's CBD, but a lot of it is, it's in manufacturing and clothes and all kinds of stuff.
I was gonna say, what do you mean by taste?
Yeah.
Yeah, I look at it as
What an
sort of,
innuendo by Joanne.
our role is really to come in, as the designated redeveloper to really address the limitations that, but for our involvement, have resulted in a lack of investment or economic development in this footprint. So I really view our role as being kind of the facilitator and the enabler
Okay.
for that end user. And so with that, it was doing the parcel assemblage. It's identifying and continue to identify what the underlying environmental issues may or may not be, and then putting in place a program to resolve them. And then it's identifying what is the constraints due to the lack of infrastructure, and then resolve those. And then ultimately, the end user is going to be, the marketplace will sort of dictate that. And then any potential end user is going to have to be compliant with zoning, and they're going to have to come in and present to the RDA and to the community at large. And so, to answer your question specifically, I view like that's our role, is to be kind of the stewards of having a site that is now ready for a follow-on developer. But ultimately, that follow-on developer or end user is going to have to kind of comply with zoning requirements and meet with the approval of the community. And if the community feels that 1.77 million square feet of grow facility is you know.
Well, yeah, we could grow hemp.
Yeah,
That's what the
we're-
guy said to me. He said,
Yeah.
well, forget the marijuana, let's grow hemp.
Yeah, so, I mean, I feel like, you know, I think we have, I mean, I do feel, and I take this seriously, that we are really kind of stewards and facilitators here. You know, without getting into specifics, there hasn't been, I always wondered if maybe there would be like a high-tech agricultural use and sort of tap into the roots and the history of the community. And,
Yeah.
you know, a facility like Backyard Farms is the largest greenhouse grower of tomatoes in New England. They're Maine-based. There hasn't been that sort of interest, actually.
Really?
The interest has really been around, you know, logistics and distribution, but even those facilities are very much, they're very state-of-the-art, and they're almost like data centers as well. And so the range of power demand can vary pretty significantly, but the real interest has been primarily around logistics and distribution.
Oh, wow.
But, you
You
know,
never know.
you never know,
You know?
you never know.
Do you have any questions?
I have a lot of questions. I was
Yeah.
waiting for Joanna to finish.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And this is going to go, basically, I've been writing things down since you started
Sure.
talking, so I'll try to do it in the order. Your build-out plan depends on your end user.
Correct.
I'm assuming, and I may be wrong, that a 3-building build-out requires more infrastructure, probably more water, maybe more power, even though the square footage is the same? Is that a fair assessment?
You know, it's a great question. I don't believe so.
Okay.
It does require probably additional infrastructure and conduit
Right.
to each kind of building location. But, you know, if the uses are all sort of the same, you know, maybe I should caveat that by saying that if a 3-building layout is all sort of the same use and the same head count, it could be, you know, it could be consistent. But you bring up a good point in that if one use is different than the other, and, you know, let's just, so to follow your point, further state routes is a really good one, is if this were sort of distribution, this is sort of warehousing, and then this is a small data center, then I would agree that the power requirements could be different, yes.
And at some point, you know,
I had to think that through a little bit, that was a good question.
you know, there was the talk at some point of maybe one of the buildings being like an office building.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's still a potential for one of the buyers, but that all of a sudden, now it's almost a public space, which has more water use, I would think. Now you're talking about cafeterias and things like that. So, which leads me to my next question. The mass grant for getting the water that you need, that you spoke about, it seems to be almost a catch-22. That you need to know what is going to be built before you know how much water you need, but the builder's not going to go in until he knows he needs the water.
That's right.
Or how he's going to have the water he needs. So can you just explain again what you think the timeline will be as far as determining water and maybe going to the mass grant? I guess the bottom line question is that going to slow you down in your pursuit of an end user?
I don't know. We certainly hope not. We hope that by making the investment in good engineering, programming, and planning now, we'll sort of identify over the course of the next 3 or 4 months whether or not that becomes a critical path or not. Because what would then really happen is that, you know, this is a very unique site in that there aren't, because of the assemblage that's taken place, there aren't a lot of sites available for a Fortune 500, 100, or 50 company to, you know, really build a state-of-the-art facility. And so, as a result, you know, what could happen is that rather than try to make a Mass Works grant part of the critical path, there'll just be a decision to go forward without that. And I only mentioned the Mass Works grant, I really mentioned it candidly prematurely, but I mentioned it to be transparent in terms of what could surface as a potential requirement downstream. Do I expect that that would become a critical path item for a future developer? I don't believe so, but again, this is exactly what VHB and Wright Pierce are working on, like, in the moment.
Okay, right now your maximum footprint is 1.77 million square feet?
Correct,
And that's based on all the approvals that you've gotten.
correct.
In the future, can that be expanded?
I suppose if a end user wanted to come back to the town and to the state, they could make the business decision to do so. I sort of think, and again, I'm not the end user, so it's hard for me to say. I think that they would want to probably work within kind of the existing approvals because of the ability to be more efficient in the permitting and delivery process.
All right, but I'm thinking if their business grows and all of a sudden they need more space
Yeah.
after they've built out the 1.7.
Potentially, I suppose, yes. At that point, I think it would be sort of the town process would govern.
Okay, I think that was it with those drawings. Oh, no, there's one more. Are you looking at one end user, or are you looking at multiple end users simultaneously, or is it staggered? Or does it matter?
No, that's a good question, and to date, the interest has been by a single end user and an interest in a single structure. And, I'm glad you asked it, because sometimes, literally, this is, part of the day every day, and so you get so immersed in it, and I'm one of those people. I don't know if I've told the same person the same thing 100 times, or I've talked to 100 people and shared it, one time each. So that's what your question on the 3 building kind of got me outside of my wiring in terms of how I've been thinking about it. And that's because predominantly the interest to date has been by a single end user in a single structure, and in a size to be determined, anywhere from, it seems like the likely smallest structure would be, somewhere, let's say, somewhere between, let's say, 800 and 1 million square feet has been sort of the smallest structure.
Okay.
And so the interest has been predominantly by single end users in a single building.
Okay. All right, I think that was.
And that's driven a lot of the, and I'm sorry, that's driven a lot of the engineering planning too,
Okay.
And so.
Moving towards a single building. Single user.
Yes, and so it becomes a little bit easier to because of that feedback, and this helps me answer your earlier question maybe with a little bit better clarity, is because that's been the feedback, we've been able to say, in terms of how we've asked our engineers to work on that roadmap and solutions, if we think the smallest building is X and the largest building we know is Y, help us identify what the solution looks like for X and Y, and then we'll at least have it bookended. And then, if it's a building size in between, then we would adjust proportionally up or down.
And that would allow a single end user, if they were somewhere in between the availability to go up to the max.
Yes.
So their building growth.
Yes.
Okay.
And the other
In
thing.
the future.
Yes,
as an
exactly. And one of the things that's really the rate at which the building programming has evolved has been incredibly rapid. And by that I mean sort of like dimensions and lengths and widths and heights. And I think a lot of the pressure put on logistics and distribution of goods has driven a lot of rapid changes. And so we've tried to because we're sort of trying to solve a problem that we don't necessarily know what it is, right? And so what we've done is we've said, let's work on a single building program, that this would be the largest, but let's also scale it back to something smaller, and let's work to identify water, wastewater, and power solutions for a single building, single user, with some flexibility in terms of size.
Okay.
What's that? Is that the 1,000,000 square foot?
This is a full build, 177 under one roof, which would also require,
But how big is that whole warehouse gonna be?
1.7.
yeah, and
7 million square feet.
this is a single building, 1.77 million square feet.
Oh, I'm
And again,
sorry.
that's not anybody specific, that's us laying out what it would look like under a single structure, so that then we can, in that concept that I was just explaining, we could then identify water, wastewater solutions
No, I
and power.
So the last question I have, I had a lot of questions.
Oh, no, that's, yeah.
Never mind. My question is, will the town be responsible for maintaining, or for maintenance, as well as plowing of all the roads getting to the property, Park Ave, et cetera?
Yeah, well, I think anything within the property footprint will clearly not be a town obligation, right?
Okay.
In terms of plowing.
But on that diagram where you have the coming in.
Yes.
You have them coming in, right, there?
This is Route 58.
Yeah. So is that still part of the town property?
Yeah, so Route 58 is, I believe, a Mass DOT.
County road.
Yeah, county road. Montello is a town road, but I think that once it gets to that level of discussion, I think it'll then be a discussion with the end user regarding responsibility of Montello.
Okay. All right. So the end user, would any of that diagram be responsible for the town?
Well, I'm not sure who
Get the
today.
Montello one, I'm talking, that area.
Yeah, so certainly Route 58, I'm not sure if that's maintained by the town or.
It's town.
Town,
Mass
yeah,
Law.
Town.
okay.
Yeah, I would think it was the town, so that would continue to be, and then in terms of Montello itself, I think that's a discussion for probably in the near term, I would expect, given that it's currently being designed, so it's a good question.
Okay.
Is the $3.2 million highway, is that exclusively for that? Is that the price tag on what we're looking at there, pretty much?
It is plus or minus. I mean, there's a much more comprehensive, a lot of time was spent, because it's not just with local requirements, it's also with broader involvement as well. Middleborough, and is it, I'll get the acronym wrong, SPRTA?
Serpent.
Yes.
Perfect, yeah.
And so, there's sort of a three-phase within the MIPA process. There was different phases of roadway improvements that would be triggered based off of traffic counts once the end user was there. So certain traffic counts triggered additional follow-on enhancements. As an example, there's a potential based off of traffic counts that there could be signaling required. And so this just, currently what this is showing is just obviously that specific section, but it's not showing some of the other features and benefits that were part of the MassWorks application that include some additional areas to be
The rework,
addressed.
the interchange.
Yeah, exactly.
Work with the interchange.
Yeah. All right, let's see. One other quick question I had. I know that at the very beginning of this, there was, and you had mentioned the potential, which I think is gone now, of the fire fence, the fire
Fire suppression.
at the top of Montello Street, right at the Carver Plimpton line. The intersection that you're showing there between your entry to the building and Montello Street seems to have a northern spur going into Montello Street. And you see the little triangle?
Yeah, this is an older,
Okay.
conceptual diagram. The current plan is that the MassWorks grant is likely, the funding for that and the road and the work to be done under that is likely to end somewhere here.
Okay.
And I think, one of the things that we can also do, because what I don't want to do is I have enough information that I can give you sort of the higher level overview. But happy to, based off of like any specific questions that get generated, that we can then, if you, either through a future meeting or via email, whatever works best for the board, I can ask each of the respective engineering disciplines to provide responses, or if you'd like, come in here and also add more detail.
Well, I just know that one of the worries early on was the trucks taking a shortcut and going up the north end of Montello.
Yes.
Behind Tractor Supply on that dirt road. And if someone were to see this drawing, the way it is, they would say, well, that's kind of identifying a shortcut that.
Yeah, and again,
Okay,
that's the danger with illustrations. I wanted to really be able to illustrate this for you,
Right,
because
okay,
I had
that's fine.
expected as a question. But the one thing that I can confidently say is that there's gonna be engineering controls and limitations that prevent any access for vehicle traffic exiting the future development of ever going,
Okay.
absent, some state of, an absolute,
Fire emergency.
absolute emergency.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so there's already contemplated controls. And I'll let VHB as the project's traffic engineer and the town's traffic engineer talk about that in more detail as we kind of progress, because, one of the early requirements, was some sort of a physical barrier, and there may be a different way or a better way to do that, or there may be a change of thinking. So I think that's gonna be one of the elements of the project that's gonna have to be discussed again with the stakeholders.
Are you through? I have a question.
Man,
Are you through? Okay. I remember early, I've been on this project obviously since day one, but the fire department initially said, oh, you have to have 2 exits. And one obviously would have been Park Ave, and the other one would have been the Cole property, the one that you have coming in. Now, today, on the site, there is 2 exits. There's a entrance, either entrance or exit, Cole property, which is
Sure.
right after the Aubuchons.
Yep.
When you go further down that road, you're gonna see Park Ave.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still in the works, so that if there is some fire or whatever on that site, in one of those accesses, Cole property, I have to use that word, because that's all I
Yeah,
know.
no, that's okay. I think I understand the question. So Route 58,
Yep.
if it's helpful, do you want me to turn it this way?
no.
No, the way you
That's
are
that's the right orientation.
Okay.
North of.
Okay, so, Route 58 heading north, New Montello. Here's an entrance and an exit, and then here's an entrance and an exit here.
Yeah,
So I think these are the 2 that you're
yeah,
referring to. So this is showing those 2 here.
okay.
One that is somewhat aligned with the current entrance at Park Ave, and then one that's probably not aligned with any entrances as you might see it, but it's
Well, I was
here.
kind of wondering, what is the red dotted things? What does that represent?
Sure, so that is the stretch of so this is Montello as it currently exists.
Yeah,
At the back end of the retail plaza where the Aubuchon is located,
yep,
this will no longer be a continuous road here. Pavement will be removed,
Okay.
and that will not be a road any longer, and Montello will now be
Oh.
configured here.
is that what that means, it's gonna be removed?
That's correct, and so what you have here is essentially this becomes the entrance into the retail.
Dunkin' Donuts and all that?
That's right.
Okay. Now, the part that's gonna get removed, when it comes to the join, Cole's property, there's a cul-de-sac, there's water there now. They're gonna be building up that? I imagine, right? That must be all engineered? Because I remember.
I'm just not sure, maybe,
Well, the water, there's a lot of water in that part of the property. So
Sure.
it comes in, and there's like a cul-de-sac, it's part of what Cole's property, I call it Cole because
Okay.
it is. And they must be doing some engineering thing to raise the road or whatever they're doing. I think that's where they're coming in, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's, certainly there's wetland constraints in terms of where you can build and can't build, and so, those will be adhered to. As an example, this new alignment for the Montello really did, it's almost threading a needle, if you will, because there's a fair amount of wetlands in this particular
Yeah, right,
area.
further as you go towards Park Ave, it's all wet.
Yeah, so this was really sort of threading the needle through, I think it was the former Webby parcels.
Yeah, you own the whole thing.
That's right, and so this is the new entrance. So, the only thing, I'll just use a blanket statement that says, construction, whether it's building or roadway construction, is gonna have to comply with, appropriate setbacks and regulations
Yeah,
relative
right.
to wetlands.
It's
and
tricky.
It
It's
is,
tricky, you'll get it done, but it's tricky.
it is.
Joanna, the preliminary plan for this has been presented to conservation already.
Oh, all right.
And
Oh, okay.
for the most part, other than the little section that is new going from 58 to the current Montello,
Yeah.
the rest of Montello remains on its current footprint.
Oh, okay.
So that doesn't really affect anything from the wetland standpoint.
Okay,
And the little bit of intrusion into the wetlands that the new extension going to Montello Street is going to make occur is
Yeah.
being offset by the red area. They're going to let that go back to nature.
oh, they are. Oh, okay.
That will be a trade-off for what they need to
Oh, okay. All right.
incur.
That answers my question, because
Thank you,
when I
sir.
went over there,
I appreciate
letting
that.
it go back to nature's area, it's not far from where it is today, but,
That's right.
Right, but that was the
Okay,
trade-off.
all right,
And we
good.
made sure that was going to
all
happen.
right,
so.
great.
The only question I have, since everything seems to have been covered very well, thank you both, is that at the very beginning you said that you either have acquired all the parcels or they should be acquired by end of the year, first of the year, kind of. At the very beginning of this project, there was kind of eminent domain was a hot button
Yeah.
topic, and now that has been avoided.
That's correct, yes. Yeah, it was actually really, we appreciated that part of the process was being able to sort of negotiate mutually acceptable transactions for each of the parties, and that ultimately that wasn't needed. And I, in each and every instance, they've been, the transactions have been really amicable and have gone very smoothly. Probably the more challenging one was revolving around this parcel here, but that has now gone really well.
I think that's where we left it back in
Yes.
February,
Yeah,
is we were
yeah.
still,
Right.
we were
Yeah,
still tussling with
that's
that
true.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's gone well, and we were able to get to, I'd say a fair and reasonable compromise
Perfect.
that worked for each party, and so we're happy that was the outcome.
I just wanted to make sure that we could state that
Yes.
eminent domain has been taken off our plate.
Right,
Yeah.
and I think that we owe you a debt of gratitude
Yeah.
for
We-
working so hard to do that, because it's something that we
It is the
obviously
best.
wanted, we
It's
wanted to
absolutely
avoid
the
it,
best.
as,
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
was
no,
certainly
it
for
was
us
a
the last
lot,
resort.
no, it was good. I think it was the better way to be able to sort of move the plan forward. And I think one of the things, and George really led that, and one of the things it was being able to deal with the Tushers on their own terms. That really turned out to be, I think, very much a positive outcome. I think a lot of trust was established, and I think allowing them to go through their own decision-making process turned out to be really very much a positive.
Yeah, and I'll
a
add to
positive way
that, that
forward.
George was very forthcoming
Yeah.
with them. Not only was the price okay
Yeah.
and what they wanted, but he helped them move and
That's right.
paid for all of that.
That's right.
So he was outstanding.
Yeah.
I want to know.
They were really wonderful, actually.
I mean, that shows being a good neighbor
Yeah.
already. And I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Do you have any other questions, Mr. LaFond, anything?
I'm just taking.
Mr. Walsh, anything?
No.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I think maybe March, April, maybe ask him to come back.
I
Sure.
would think so.
Yeah. So we'll put that on a particular file,
Yeah.
maybe sometime.
You
You know,
know,
you're saying things could break in 2 to 4 months, we'll give you 6.
Yeah, well, you know, but maybe we can do it, I mean, say, and I hope I was, my concern coming in here was specifically to being able to answer very detailed questions relative to the work being done by our engineers, but we're working with them on a very regular, consistent, daily basis. So Sabri, I hope I was able at least to answer
Yeah.
the questions to an adequate level. What I would really like to do is just make sure that any detailed questions, or if I didn't go deep enough in a response, please let me know. And, you know, we literally have a small army of really capable engineers working on this, and hopefully none of them get a hold of this and see, maybe if I did a poor job reflecting what they're doing, you
Well, I
know.
think what we learned today is that you know only what you know.
Yeah, that is true.
So,
That's true.
we can't ask you for anything more than that.
And don't judge me on my ability to fold this thing up again, because it's not.
Just gonna let you do it.
But, yeah, no, we really are working very closely, and I think one of the questions, Sharon, that you said, we are going to start doing just like information gathering on, like with the North Carver Water District, DPW, fire, just to start collecting, kind of their early input to guide some of the engineering planning that's underway.
Well, thank you so much for coming in
Yes,
tonight.
thank
I'm
you.
sure most of the people who watch this tonight will get a good feel for what we're talking about, for what that site is looking at. And then we'll touch base after the first of the year.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
Well, thank you to the board, and stay safe and
Yeah, you
enjoy your
too.
holidays.
Yep.
So when would you like them back, Sharon, did you say?
I'm thinking March or April.
March or April.
March or April, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and certainly if between now and then there's questions, let us know.
Yeah.
If you'd like a site visit before the snow flies, let us know.
Oh, it's
Really?
kind of an idea, but I'm not,
No,
I don't think
we've been there.
We've been there, done that.
Yes, understood.
but thank you. I
Yeah,
mean, as
well,
we
thank
drive
you.
by it, we can't really tell what's been going on behind the scenes. And with so many things that had changed with COVID,
Sure.
we didn't know where this very big project was, and it's, seems to be a lot further along than I thought. it
Yeah,
was.
there's
So,
been a lot of progress made.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're very happy.
thank you.
about
Please
that.
give George our appreciation.
Yes, please
I
do.
hope everything's well with him.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All right.
you.
Oh, thank you. Take care.
All right. The next thing on our agenda, item on our agenda is simply a discussion of the 2 positions that remain vacant on our board. And now people can see the good work that we do by watching this. Jim, is there any update? Rick, anything?
Just the one applicant.
We have one
We
applicant,
have one applicant.
he's here.
That's right.
Hi.
and he's still
I
here.
was just gonna say.
Can we split you in 2?
I couldn't walk out because of social distance.
Well, that's true.
We can split you in 2.
But for
We do not have another applicant yet, this is the only one.
At this point.
At this time.
For anyone who's listening, we do have 2 positions open. One is a 2-year position, one is a 5-year position. The terms, when you do run for this is an elected position, is 5 years. you would be appointed for 1 year and then have to run for the remainder of the next, of whatever term you choose. If you want the 2-year appointment, you run for the remainder of another year, or the 5-year appointment, you run for the 4 years. And it is a joint appointment between the RDA and the select board, so we would meet together. And if our applicant would like to go forward, we could meet with the select board.
November 17th?
I have a zoning meeting that night,
What time is the meeting?
Uh,
What time's your meeting?
7.
Oh, same time. Is that the next select board's meeting?
It is, yes.
Is there a meeting after that? Because it would just have to be in that.
Well, we may be having one the following week to set the tax rate. So just December 1, I can confirm that, but December 1.
I have a zoning meeting.
The
You
24th.
meet on the same day?
Let me see if the 24th, I think our tax rate would be being set. December
What time's your
1.
planning board, your zoning?
7,
How long do they last?
4 hours.
Oh, wow.
Are you serious? Wow.
Can you take the time out?
Takes time to do quality work.
We'll
I don't know.
see what we can do, Sharon. I'll check out some of those.
But-
dates.
If we can just glance at our calendars quickly, the appointment just should be made before our next RDA meeting, and would that be the 8th?
I don't have my calendar, I forgot it.
8th of December, I was
Our next, when do we meet, the third,
We meet the second or
Second
third?
Tuesday,
Second, so that would be the 8th.
the 8th.
the 8th, December 8th, okay.
If our applicant is interested and wants to pursue it, I think I can make the first work.
All right, let me just double check.
I'll just, like you say, step out and
Because
come
it's
back.
Yeah, well, that's good, that's
public
good.
we have
hearing
an alternate.
requirements.
We could be first, make sure we're first on
I
the
would,
agenda.
you would always be first. Don't you worry.
I'm gonna be, we don't wanna be last.
Always be first.
Those things run long, your meetings run long.
So we'll look into a joint meeting on 12/1 if our applicant, after tonight, still wishes to pursue.
And I will double
You do?
check that
Thank you.
date though.
Is December 1st the actual select board meeting?
As of right now, that's when we would plan to set the tax rate. It's supposed to be November 17th, but there's some,
Oh, you're not
That's some-
looking at the 17th?
been some
No,
delays.
I have the zoning board, I
Yeah.
can't.
But
step
they are
out of.
meeting the 17th, if that.
That meeting I cannot step out of.
Do we want the applicant to introduce himself? And
I don't know if he'd feel comfortable, but he certainly can.
Sure. Don't mind. Stand up for a second. So, hello everybody, I'm Paul Costas. I was actually paying my taxes online the other day when I noticed on the website that there was the openings for the board. And currently, I work at a telecommunications company in Quincy, in mostly project management, service delivery, that sort of thing. I've actually been thinking about some ways to be a little bit more involved locally, and this seemed like a good intersection of the use of what I do at work and some of the things I've been involved in there. Growing up, my grandfather was a landscape architect, did a lot of work around the East Bridgewater and sort of like the Plymouth County area. So, growing up, I was always exposed to that sort of subject material, if you will, and it has always then been an interest for me. So this sort of thing seemed like a good opportunity to hit a few buttons. Certainly liked hearing what I heard tonight. That was pretty cool to get in on that and hear what was going on. So without going too long here, hopefully this is the kind of thing that can allow me to get involved, do some good work on behalf of the town, and also do it in a way that seems pretty interesting.
Excellent, thank you.
Appreciate you guys having me here today, and hopefully we'll be talking more in the future.
So I just have a question.
Sure.
My question is this, and in the past, we've had people who were interested, but they only wanted to fill that position for that short interim time. They didn't want to run for the remaining part. Would you want to continue to run and be a part of this group?
Yeah, I mean, in looking at how it shakes out for me, when I she used to do something, I don't think you enter into something and say, oh gosh, I think I'll try it out for a year and then see what happens. So if you're gonna make a commitment, you have to commit and go forward. What goes on beyond the initial term, I think kind of gets dependent on how things look based upon, lifestyle, and if it's the same as it is then, but
Okay.
my expectation would be for the initial term to be the full duration.
Okay,
And we generally meet the second Tuesday of every month. Our meeting time has always been around 5:30. I
Okay.
don't know if that would be an issue.
No, I should be able to make that work.
Okey dokey.
Cool,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
So we'll definitely try for the first,
Okay.
because I can step out of my zoning meetings that night.
And will you be,
I think-
at this point, do you know if you'll be live or via Zoom? Has there been, you taking this on a meeting-by-meeting basis at this point, or?
For zoning,
Yes.
we'll talk about it later.
Okay, fair enough. Wrong forum.
I am not in charge, I'm only vice chair there. Okay, next is an update on our continually ongoing projects. The urban renewal project, we can just skip right over.
Right, done with that.
We've had the best of all updates. 94th Street,
So, no new interest, but I still have to put a new ad on the website. And I think Joanna had a question regarding whether or not we could use a real estate agent.
or put a
Right.
sign. It
Or
was a
put- or put a
sign.
sign.
put a sign, and I can't find signs by design. I don't know, do they live in town anymore? He does?
Oh,
I can walk to his house.
I believe so, yeah.
He
Peter
what?
Allegrini?
Yeah.
Peter
he's-
Allegrini.
What's
yeah.
his name?
It's Peter Allegrini. He's in, over on Commerce Way, right? Over on Purchase Street?
Yeah. Been the
He's in Commerce Way?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
there's,
he moved
you know, I went on the website and I looked, and I figured, hey, he should be there, but he's not. Okay, I'll look it up.
I can catch
He's
him when
there.
he walks his beagles by my house.
So, I
But
just.
we talked about maybe spending some money and just putting up a
Exactly.
sign, Town of Carver, probably the planner's phone number.
Right.
Because that's right next door to,
If it takes.
To current,
that's right next door to where the distribution center's going in, right?
the Agway place?
Yeah, the Agway,
Yeah.
well, there's another building behind it too.
Right, yeah, there's the Nutrien, there's the glass company that already exists, and then,
And we're on the other side, right?
right, we're
Yes.
Kind of
in
going up
But
the
we
hill.
abut it,
Yeah.
right?
the,
Yeah.
facing the the new building going up is to the left of that.
So I printed it out, Jim, and I want to make sure it says bid deadline. There should be no deadline, because it says it's April 30th. Now, who cares to log in and fulfill that request, because it says bid deadline? Can't you just take that out?
Yeah, we can take that out,
Okay,
just leave it
good.
open, leave it open-ended,
Yeah,
and then, just keep on plugging. We'll
okay.
see I think once that, we have the nutrient building going up, which everyone calls Agway.
Yeah.
And then next door, Bayberry Dunes is another company, has a approved site plan. And very soon, they're gonna be starting their work. I think they're going in to get their building permits very soon. So once that starts work, now you have activity, so usually that generates more interest in a potential property there. So, okay.
And the last request I had, in the permitting department, all of that particular 90 Forest Street, they have a folder in there that clearly shows where the well is. It shows the dimensions, it's been all surveyed. Can you pull that and stick it in so they can look at it?
Sure.
That would be great, because it would show it shows the well, and it shows the thing has been all surveyed, actually. See, we
I
had,
don't think it's a working well.
well, I talked to the building guy, and he said all they have to do is pump it out
Oh, okay.
and test it, and
Test it.
it's good to go. He says, and that's worth at least 10 grand, if not more.
Okay.
So I have one more question.
Go ahead.
We did have it surveyed, okay? Did the people that we paid money to survey, did they prepare a new surveyor plan and put it into the permitting department folder?
Well, I don't know, I'll have to check that.
I don't,
We paid for that money.
I think we paid, well, the surveyor plan that we had was an engineered plan. But I thought we just paid to have the boundaries noted.
Oh, we didn't pay for them to redo?
I don't know.
We didn't pay for the redo of the
We
survey?
we didn't do a whole, because that
No,
would
we
be
didn't ask for a plan?
thousands of dollars.
Right, no, I think
We just had them-
we had to confirm the frontage.
We only had to.
Because there was
confirm that
discrepancy in the
So we
frontage.
do have that, so the survey plan that I'm talking about is in the permitting department. Because I've seen it, I went and looked at it, and that's where I saw the well and the whole 9 yards. So I figured if you put it in there, it'd be a little more, you know, from a real estate perspective.
And what do you have for bills payable? Do we have anything? You need me to sign a check or something?
Yes, we do need to sign checks, and they're over there, so before you, can I do the treasurer's report, or we still?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Well, we do have bills payable, and we have 2 of them for the secretary. Susan Hannah, on 9/18, we failed to pay, and then there was another one from the last time, 10/27, so we have to make out one check for $150. So all you have to do is sign, and I'll
Okay.
sign, bring it upstairs. As far as the treasurer's report, I don't have anything, do we have anything new?
I don't, other than paying the bills. I don't think so.
So there's nothing new, okay.
Is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented?
I'll move that we accept the treasurer's report as written.
I didn't say anything,
No, you said it was fine.
it was fine.
It was fine.
But the secretary, ma'am, you're the secretary, you have a copy of that packet, and she
Yes.
reports, although I didn't physically say anything tonight, but if you could just pull off the numbers, I'd appreciate that, because that goes into our minutes.
Just attach it, say, isn't that how we do it? We just attach. the
Well, she
whole report.
physically says it.
Yeah.
And she physically says it.
Is there a second?
Second, I suppose.
Yeah, you're the only one left.
You're the only one left. I
The
got
only
one
one
over
left.
here and one on this side, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there anything new to report, Mr. Walsh? No,
Nothing new.
nothing new. Is there any, have you read through the minutes? We'll look at the minutes
Yeah.
from October 13th.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted for October 13th.
Second,
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of October 13th. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye. That passes. We'll set our next date is December 8th. Okay with everyone?
Yes.
Do we,
yeah, I don't have my calendar, that's fine. At 5:30, right?
I'll send, at 5:30, is everyone good with 5:30?
Yeah, 5:30
Yes.
is good.
November 8th?
December.
December 8th.
November
That's
8th,
what it is,
November 8th, we've already missed.
Could you,
Days late.
I want you to repeat his name again, because I didn't get it. The potential,
Paul Costas?
Paul Costas.
Paul Costa?
That's me.
And if you have any questions concerning the board, either talk to Jim or he'll give you my email.
Sounds great.
So, let's see, our next meeting is December 8th, and we'll be advised of a joint meeting with the select board on December 1st, because the 3 of us have to be there. Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh, never mind, I jumped ahead.
I'm gonna post.
Yeah, we'll post that, but members' comments?
I have a comment or a question that Jim, either you can look into or maybe Rick. As you know, I am the appointee from the Department of Housing and Community Development. I have 2 letters dated July 31st, 2017. One from our esteemed governor congratulating me on my appointment. And it says, where does it say? I see the date page here. Oh, it just, that was thanking you for the appointment. The letter from the DHCD says that my appointment expires on April 1st, 2021. I have a letter from the Board of Selectmen that says it expires on June 30th, 2021. So, since 2021 is around the corner,
So who,
Interesting. Which do you prefer?
well, I don't want to be, I want to pursue it for a second term, obviously. So I just don't want it to be
Right.
lapsed.
Can you give me a copy of that, or just
Yeah,
send an email, PDF or something, so we can look into that?
okay.
Unless you, I don't think you want to give me your originals, that's all. Trust
No.
me, you don't want to give me your originals.
So it sounds like April, because that's election time, that would be the expiration.
Right, but
well,
I
his
think,
isn't elected, his is appointed.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, he had, that's right, he has to be appointed, yeah, okay, fine. I don't know.
see, my date of appointment was July 31st, so it being for 4 years, I think that the Board of Selectmen just assumed,
Back up to the fiscal year.
yeah, back it up to the
That's what I was-
fiscal year. But the actual DHCD says
So I think it's
it's
April,
April.
yeah, I would.
So that's probably more accurate.
I would say it's, DHCD did that, right?
Yeah, that's the letter from
Yeah, and
DHCD.
that's the appointment, where the appointment comes from.
Right.
That much I know.
So you'll look into that for us?
Yes,
I'll get this over to you.
exactly, yes, that way.
I have to run too. 2021.
Oh, that's what you have to read
Oh,
now.
no, not the night, no. I'm here for the night, no. I'm here for the night.
She's not in a hurry if she's got.
That's all I
No,
got.
no,
That's my only comment.
Thank you for the reminding me that. I hadn't turned my page yet. All right, so
Motion to adjourn?
let me just go over one more time. We have potentially a joint selectmen meeting on December 1st.
Right.
And is that gonna be a night meeting, or is it gonna be another one of the morning meetings?
I
Well, he's a
anticipate
businessman, that might not
that
be.
That's a night meeting, that's
Yeah.
that isn't, yeah.
That might-
That'll be a night
That's
meeting.
my
Night meeting.
understanding.
Okay,
Yes,
fine.
yes, the day meetings were mapped out in advance, but
Okay.
it was not selected, so.
Okay, so put those on your calendar, and Mr. Costas, you will have to be present. So put that on your
Could
calendar
you pass
too.
me that?
And I'll make sure we have the agenda out for that. And then our next meeting will be December 8th at 5:30. I have a motion to adjourn, seconded?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you and good night.